Welcome to 1 Minute Theatre Reviews. I'm Paul Seven Lewis, and in this special edition I'll be looking at what the critics had to say about Amy Adams in The Glass Menagerie. Amy Adams has had 6 Oscar nominations, and she's been the mainstay of dozens of Hollywood movies from Enchanted to American Hustle. But she hasn't been seen much on stage, so there was great excitement when it was announced that she would star in The Glass Menagerie in London's West End. So, did Ms. Adams smash it in Tennessee Williams' emotionally wrought play, or did it smash her? And as an aside, how did former Headlong boss Jeremy Herrin get along directing the first play from his new commercial company, Second Half Productions? In The Glass Menagerie, Tom recalls a time in the past when he as a young man lived with his mother, a middle-aged fading Southern belle, and his older sister Laura, who had a collection of glass animals. His mother, the part played by Amy Adams, pressured Tom into helping find a suitor for Laura. This being a Tennessee Williams play, things don't go well. And nor did this production, according to the critics. The word that most comes to mind in describing both the production and Amy Adams is underwhelming, as evidenced by the lack of 5 or even 4-star reviews. 9 gave 3 stars and 4 a mere 2. So why did The Glass Menagerie fail to reach the heights? Was it the fault of Amy Adams or the production? Let's start with the critics' reflections on the star. Miss Adams' performance was described as solid but unremarkable by Arifa Akbar in The Guardian, and likeable but, seems there's always a but, underpowered by Alice Saville in The Independent. She expresses but doesn't radiate emotion, said David Benedict in Variety. It's all very sad and understated, but it doesn't always land, said Tim Barnow in The Stage. Some great lines feel like missed opportunities. The Observer too was lukewarm. She is persuasive as a frustrated housefrau, said Susanna Clapp, but never seems haunted by her days as a Southern belle. Amy Adams makes a muted and unconvincing West End debut, said Nick Curtis in the Evening Standard, and twisted the knife by saying she is often indistinct, somewhat phony. And damning with faint praise, she's not bad, just unremarkable in a role that strikes a single clanging note of hysterical gentility throughout. Cindy Marcolina of Broadway World struck the same note. I don't mean the clanging note, I mean she had the same thought, saying, "She is a minimalist in her imperiousness and cinematic in her poise." If only she'd stopped there, but she had to add, "too much so. She is surrounded by finer performances than her own." So, a certain lack of enthusiasm so far. But Quentin Letts in the Sunday Times took a different view. What Broadway World saw as her being surrounded by finer performances, he saw as a model of team-spirited restraint. "That demonstrates artistic integrity," he enthused, but added ruefully, "it comes at a cost of theatrical pizzazz." And he was quietly positive about her quiet interpretation of the part, remarking on her likeably naturalistic turn. Gwendolyn Smith in iNews took a more positive view of her minimalism than some, calling it typically unshowy. And it's this downplaying of the role that seems to have either distressed or impressed the critics, as the case may be. "Amy Adams is like an irate, bustling dormouse," said Frey qua Hawking of What's on Stage, which I think was meant as a compliment. And here's a backhanded compliment from Clive Davis in The Times. "All praise to Adams, nevertheless, for taking on a role that has tested many an actress." Most positive of all was Dominic Cavendish in The Telegraph. "To be blunt, I loved her performance," he said. "It's clear, simple, believable, and quietly heartbreaking in its contained vulnerability." Now, if you'd asked me beforehand, I would have said Jeremy Herrin, the director of such wonders as People, Places and Things and The House, would have built a safe ship for its star to sail in. But it seems he didn't provide much pizzazz either. While iNews lamented, "It's meant to make you feel. Alas, my most consistent emotion of the night was raging disappointment that the whole thing left me so cold." The Guardian described the production as undercharged. Underpowered is Andrei Lukovsky's word in Time Out. And he said, "The Glass Menagerie is one of the greatest plays ever written, and this is not its full devastating potential." Most menageries, said The Stage, are elegiac and dreamy. We don't expect the awkwardness, the flatness, the repression that we get in Herrin's production. The Observer commented, Tennessee Williams' wonderful image of fragility, secret light and peculiarity becomes solid and confrontational in Jeremy Herrin's production. Under some lights it looks like a vending machine. For Broadway World, the production was the fundamental problem. If we strip the piece of its surplus of visual and auditory stimulations and keep only the superb contributions from the actors, this take on Williams' masterpiece will be very close to being a 5-star production. Regretfully, it's barely a glassy 3. A little pun on Glass Menagerie there, although I'm not quite sure what glassy means in this context. I doubt she means smooth and shiny, so dull like a glassy stare maybe. Jeremy Herrin's designer Vicky Mortimer, who was responsible for the stupendous National Theatre production of Follies, came in for quite a bit of a stick for her stark design. As a West End star vehicle, it barely passes its MOT, said the Evening Standard. And picking on one aspect of the design, he said, the monolithic and well-lit vitrine that contains Laura's laboriously symbolic menagerie of glass animals and which dominates the stage resembles a boutique perfume counter. Clive Davis in The Times had a similar thought. Laura's cherished collection of glass animals stands in a sleek case that looks as if it belongs in the foyer of a boutique hotel. And they obviously hang out in the same sort of places. It wasn't a complete panning. The critics loved Lizzie Annis as the daughter Laura, who made her professional stage debut. Outstanding, unsentimental, spellbinding, said Variety. Anyway, before we send Amy Adams back to Hollywood with her tail between her legs, let's end with a more positive thought. As Andrei Lukovsky in Time Out said, Amy Adams is a great actor, but not a flashy one. It's a quality that continues in her West End debut. And I agree. Anyone who's followed Miss Adams' career will know that her performances are often the solid support that underpins the movie, while her more showy co-stars get the attention. Which is maybe why her 6 nominations have never translated into an actual Oscar. As Quentin Letts put it in the Sunday Times, Adams emerges as a bigger professional and a smaller superstar. I don't just summarise other people's reviews, I review shows myself, and if you'd like to be the first to know about them, please subscribe. You can also follow me on Instagram, where I post photos of the theatres I visit, and on Facebook and Twitter. Thank you for watching.